Well, I should probably cover the protagonist of the game as one of the earlier guides, so today we have Matthew. Matthew plays very similarly to the martial artist class in the main game with a big focus on art spam and canceling to get as much damage as possible. If I had to describe Matthew, he feels a lot like a utility attacker with a short cooldown break art and secondary damage dealer who still manages to be a strong and fun character to play, even if not to the same extent as the absurdly broken Rex. In this video, I want to take a look at Matthew, talk about his strengths and weaknesses, show how to build him, and discuss how I believe to use him most effectively. If you enjoy my guide content for Future Redeemed and want to see more on this and the rest of the Xenoblade series, please be sure to subscribe to the channel because it really helps me out so much. Let's get into this. So once again, I have the recommendation of making sure you are upgrading and maxing out your weapon as much as possible depending on what point of the game you are at. If you do that, you will have a lot more damage. It's a pretty significant attack increase the more you do it. You also get a critical rate increase, which is also really nice for Matthew. He also scales pretty well with critical hit rate, just like Rex. I was able to hit 66% critical hit rate and 1300 attack. That's due to some of my accessories as well. But it's still a pretty nice total to have. Makes him hit pretty dang hard, pretty consistently as well. I want to take a look at his skills now because these are the things that make him stand out and give him a lot of nice utility in combat. So his first skill is going to be Breaking Waves. Each time you perform a cancel, this boosts the damage dealt by 20% up to a maximum of 150%. This is a really nice skill. It's just essentially 150% damage boost. It's really easy to do because your arts are very low cooldown. It's very easy to stack up the cancels and get your 150% damage boost very quickly into fights. This makes him hit pretty hard, pretty consistently, and it stacks really well with another skill he has as well. So Flashing Fists. Chained auto attacks increase attack speed, and auto attack interval is also shortened, which is a major effect. This is definitely more of a utility skill, but it is very nice to have in certain scenarios where you're just trying to fish for a break art, because you're able to recharge your break art extremely quickly since it's one of your Agnes-based arts that recharges based on auto attacks and cancels. So you're able to get that up very quickly, you're able to use it more often to try to fish for those breaks. It also allows you to use your positional art more often, which means you can use your talent art more often, which means you can use even more breaks. So it's a really nice skill to have, just specifically for the type of kit that Matthew has, so because of that, I do really like it a lot. Matthew's third skill is Giant Killer. This will boost damage dealt by 100% when fighting a unique or boss monster, so essentially all of the strongest enemies in the game, you get a free 100% damage boost. This makes you effectively have a 250% damage boost 99% of the time, just because it's really easy to stack up your cancels and get that 150% boost. And that means Matthew's going to be hitting decently hard in most fights, and that's really nice, just to be able to consistently have pretty high damage output. It's really nice for an attacker. Make sure he's always hitting hard, and make sure he's never going to be dead weight, even if he is more of a utility-based attacker in a lot of situations. His final skill is probably the least impactful. This is Victor's Combo, a 12% chance to keep recharge when using an art. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad effect, but I've never been a fan of RNG-based effects, especially when it doesn't have a super high activation rate. It is nice when it does activate because it means you can instantly use the same art again, which means you might get more chances to break. You might get another chance to use positional art, which means you can charge your talent art up faster. And just in general, there are a lot of useful applications of this as it does activate, but it's a little bit too random, and for my liking especially, and it's not going to activate as much as you might want. I probably would prefer a slightly different skill here, maybe like crit recharge like the martial artist class has in the base game, but this is still a pretty solid skill to have just in general. Now, as far as the secondary type skills he has that aren't his primary skills, he has slower arts aggro. He does not get aggro nearly as easily as Rex does because of this. So you can reduce the aggro generated when he uses an art by 30%, which is nice. He will ignore blowdown and launch by somersaulting and has a 6% chance to grant attack up. So if an enemy tries to do those effects to him, he might just evade those entirely, which is pretty nice. General 10% attack boost and general 10% crit rate boost, pretty nice. Quick move damage up, so this will boost your damage dealt by 50% when using an art right after a quick move maneuver. So there's a positive and negative to this. So one, it's nice to be able to immediately get that 50% damage boost upon using an art after a quick move. But the thing is, you can't get a cancel because you need to cancel out of an auto attack or a different art. So you're unable to get this 50% if you're doing that, and cancel damage is also a thing, especially with this type of kit where you also get added to damage based on how many cancels you do. So this doesn't end up having the greatest synergy with him, but it is something that you can do just for a quick boost of damage if you are just trying to quick move out of an AoE or something like that. So that is something to keep track of. It just doesn't synergize super well with the rest of his kit that is very heavily cancel focused. And then the final thing he has is quick move AoE damage. When activating quick move, deals 150% attack as damage to any enemies within 5 meters. This is not a very impactful effect. 150% of attack as damage is roughly about 2,400 damage with him, which isn't terrible, but I mean, You can get so much more damage just by auto-attacking and using your arts, which will do multiple thousands of more damage just every time you do that. So this is just something that just activates a little bit of damage just as an extra little bit that you might be able to maybe cancel out of your auto-attack, go into a quick move, use another auto-attack, and then use arts. And there's a bunch of applications to try to maximize damage here, but this is not the most impactful effect overall. As far as recommendations for what to focus first when you are going through the game and just trying to figure out what to max, I would definitely make sure you are getting cancel damage as much as you can. Make sure that you immediately take Giant Killer just because it's going to be very useful, as just getting those general damage increases is very nice. I would definitely try to max out your Break Art as soon as possible because you want to have that low cooldown Break Art. Break is vital in this combat system that relies a lot on launches and the Unity combos. So you definitely want to make sure you are breaking as much as you possibly can. The Revolt Uppercut's really nice because it gives you a nice 50% cancel damage bonus when you cancel into it, so that's another good art you can max. Obviously, maxing your Talent Art is really good as well because it'll recharge all your arts by 100% when the Talent Art hits. We'll talk a bit more about that later, but that's a really good pathway to choose here as well. So in general, those are probably the things I would recommend focusing on first, but just make sure you're taking your skills when you can, and just in general, just focus on all of the damage boosts as much as you can. So let's take a closer look at the arts he has access to now. Once again, he has 6 arts that no other character shares, and he has only these 6 arts, but you can get unique effects by focusing on the different fusion effects between them, since each fusion effect that you have is different depending on which arts you link. Personally, I like this fusion setup, and we'll talk a bit more about that later. Let's focus on the 6 individual arts first. We have Revolt Uppercut here. This evades attacks, so he has a guaranteed evasion art, really nice for an attacker just to evade any kind of dangerous attack, especially if you end up getting aggro. And boost damage dealt when canceling by 50%. It's a pretty low cooldown art with a decent power multiplier of 250%, so it's a pretty nice attack just to be able to throw out whenever to get a nice boost of damage. And make sure you cancel into it, make sure you're using it when you can to evade attacks as well. It's a really nice utility attack just to have in general. Speaking of utility, we have Backspin Punch. This is his most important art. A 310% power multiplier, that doesn't matter too much. Recharge gauge of 5 and a break art. A 5 recharge gauge is really low, especially for the type of kit Matthew has where he can recharge it very quickly with his fast auto attacks. This means you can fish for breaks pretty consistently against pretty much any enemy in the game, and I highly recommend doing this just because of how important break is to the combat system. Very, very good art, one of the absolute best in this entire game. It's pretty much one of the driving forces of the entire combat system, so just being able to have such a consistently good break art with no positional effect added to it is just so incredibly useful in pretty much every situation in this game. I really love this art, really love the applications of this art. I definitely recommend using this as much as possible. And then we have Mighty Strike. So this is his only real positional art, but it's a very low cooldown, so it doesn't end up mattering. So this is how you can easily charge up Gigantic Beat. Boost damage dealt when you attack from the front by 100%, so you want to make sure you're attacking from the front. Has a cooldown of 3, so very easily to spam as much as you can. And since we're already on the subject, Gigantic Beat also has a recharge gauge of 3, so you only need 3 positional arts in order to charge this up fully. Has a massive power multiplier of 1050%, so it does a massive amount of damage just based on that. It also has an area of effect, and it will recharge all arts by 100% when the talent art connects. So essentially, every art, no matter where it is on cooldown, as long as you use this art, it'll recharge all of your arts fully. So the ideal way of using this is obviously just to use up all your arts, then use this, and then you have all of your arts off cooldown again to just immediately cancel back into again. So very, very beneficial to have in general. Also, I forgot to mention earlier, make sure you're getting arts cancel as soon as you can on him as well, since he scales so well with canceling. That's one of the most important effects that you can possibly get on him. So art cancel is also really good. And it scales very well with his talent art as well. So as far as his D-pad arts, or his Kevis-based arts, which aren't quite as good, obviously, as his Agnes arts, we have Energy Boost. This is a really nice buff effect that grants power charge to himself. And when fused with Revolt Uppercut, it also grants an area of effect on that power charge, which is really nice, especially for chain attacks. And because of that, I pretty much recommend running this setup at all times. Raging Force. This is a 50% chance to ignore defense attack, has the highest power multiplier of his entire kit, so 440% as the power multiplier effect. Really nice. A good move for chain attacks if you already have a power charge, but if you want to grant power charge to your entire team, it's going to be better to use the Revolt Uppercut Energy Boost combination. The fusion effect with Raging Punch here gives flying damage up. Now, you might not think that's very impactful, especially because Mighty hits a machine damage up, but if you swap them, you just end up getting more enemy damage type effects up, so you don't get the most benefit out of that. There's some other really nice fusion effects, but I just really love the AoE power charge, so that's why I just end up running with this instead. Detonating Hit is just a standard AoE attack with a 340% power multiplier and recharge gauge of 19 seconds. Not too much to say about this one. It's just there as an extra art, and the area of effect is pretty nice in general. Like I said, though, you can get some nice fusion effects if you swap things around, like Fast Charge if you have Mighty Boost, and launch damage up on detonating Revolt. But once again, like I said, I just really like the area of effect Power Charge because of how useful it is for the rest of the party, and as Rex especially. So that's like my main reason that I end up just having Energy Boost linked to Revolt Uppercut, and the other two don't really matter quite as much because of that. All in all, very solid utility kit. The break art is absolutely fantastic, as I mentioned. So let's take a look at gems very quickly. I have Empowered Combo and Analyze Weakness. This gives him 40% critical damage bonus. It works really well with his really high critical hit rate of 66%, especially because he doesn't have any innate critical hit damage bonuses already, so that means he gets even extra benefit out of this from just having this independent multiplier in all of his attacks. Empowered Combo, obviously when his kit revolves so heavily around cancels, you're going to want to get a nice damage boost to all of his cancels. Now, the final gem can be one of two things. So you can run Disperse Bloodlust, since he already has a good aggro reduction effect just innately built into him. If you run Disperse Bloodlust, he's not going to be getting aggro too often, especially compared to Rex. So you won't have to worry about enemies aggroing him super often. But I like running Swelling Blessing 5, and the reason for this is because it boosts power buff effects issued by Self by 35%. And this applies to his area of effect Power Charge. This makes the Power Charge 35% stronger, meaning that the Power Charge is going to do even more damage on all of the arts that it affects. And that's super beneficial. It makes everything in chain attacks hit much harder. Once again, really nice support effect for the massive damaging Rex. So I really like this because of that. Area effect Power Charge being boosted by Swelling Blessing is super nice to get as much damage as possible. As far as accessory effects, the most important thing I am running here is Break Brooch. This lowers attack target's break resistance by 25 percentage points. This is pretty much a necessity on him. It does cut into his damage somewhat, but the utility from the break is just so important that I don't even think it matters too much. So definitely run this with the low cooldown break art he has. Make sure you're getting as much breaks as possible. The only time I don't recommend running this is on like a couple enemies that are completely immune to break, but other than that, always run this. I have Thermo Headgear to increase critical hit rate by 17 percentage points. This gets him to the 66% critical hit rate. There is a slightly better critical hit rate boost. I don't have it right now. I only have an optical headband as my maximum critical hit rate boost, but from what I've heard, the final super boss drops all of the 7 Sage Rings, so you're able to get 60% crit boost from that, and that would be better than a Thermo Headgear in this case, so that's something to keep in mind if you're able to get it. And finally, I just have Silver Belt as a general attack boost by 25%. You can consider running a Warped White Brooch over Thermo Headgear if you're not worried about the crit rate that much. That's something that would be really beneficial to lower enemy defense and make sure he's hitting harder in that sense. And if you don't need to worry about break, there's other options as well. You might want to run an enemy positional bonus like machine damage up. That might help against a certain type of enemy that is immune to break. And finally, I'm running Tactics Manual 14. Or 15, I mean. During a chain attack, this will increase critical hit damage bonus by 150 percentage points. This is an absolutely broken completion bonus. Getting even more critical damage, especially for Rex and Matthew, who both have really high critical hit rates, means they'll be hitting incredibly hard. And because of that, I really like this completion bonus. I find it to be very impactful, especially with all the other chain attack setups I have here that just kind of go along really well with this also. So final thing is Unity. Typically, I have him teamed up with A because I really like the critical hit bonus that Rex and Glimmer offers, so that means that he's going to be stuck with a different character. And that Unity skill boosts effects of arts with each different art used within a set amount of time. It's essentially the Shackle Ring bonus, and this means that you can actually increase your break rate even further if you're able to cancel multiple arts into your break art. So you want to like start with all of your other arts and then go into the break art as like the 5th or 6th art, and you get an increased chance to break. So that's something that's really nice about that Unity skill. It also increases your damage depending on when you use your 5th or 6th art. I'm not going to go into too many details about how the Shackle Ring effect works right now, but essentially all you need to know is that it boosts every effect by 55 to basically 80%, depending on if it's like your 5th or 6th art in the chain. The other arts in the chain get slightly less of an effect, but if you're canceling properly, you can see a lot of benefits out of this, so it scales pretty well with the type of kit he has. Right now, I do want to showcase the team up with Rex, though, because this will give you like the maximum amount of a chain attack damage ratio finisher, just because they're both really powerful attackers. You are going to miss the Glimmer bonus, but since you get critical hit damage bonus from the Matthew Order finisher, it doesn't end up mattering quite as much when you're already in the chain attack. And increasing damage bonus by exploiting enemy weaknesses by 60 percentage points is still pretty nice. It is a pretty nice damage boost. And Matthew also has some other nice Unity skill effects you could consider, like extending area of effect when teamed up with Nickel. And extending area effects is a really nice effect to have, especially if you're fighting multiple enemies, so that's something that can be really useful for all area of effect attacks. You also can have a nice attack bonus to the entire party with Glimmer Team Up. Boosts allies' damage by 30%, reduces enemy block rate by 15%. Really nice for certain enemies that have really high block rate as well, so that's some decent pairing as well. And then finally, the Team Up with Shulk fills the Unity pairing special gauge by 100%. So it means you can start the battle with the Unity pairing. This could be nice if you're able to like instantly launch the enemy by immediately using like Rex's special ability to launch the enemy from the side, swapping over to Matthew, then using this Unity combo immediately. You could like instantly KO like a lot of enemies because with that. So that's like a nice thing to consider if you just kind of want to cheese normal enemies in the overworld. So I think that's going to cover it. The Unity combos themselves are just kind of different variations of Burst, Blowdown, and Smash. Doesn't matter too much. So let's talk about how to use Matthew practically now. I ended up talking way too long again on the actual status screen there, so sorry about that, but we're into an actual fight now. So generally, the strategy is going to be focused on trying to break as much as possible. Now, of course, since I'm fighting a super boss that has really high break resist, it's not going to happen as much as it would in most normal gameplay, but I do not have the ability to level down right now, so I'm kind of stuck just showing off a lot of the general applications of combat against these higher level enemies that we have. And Fog Dweller, obviously, I don't know his exact break resistance rate, but I think it's over 100%, so even with the Break Brooch, I'm probably only getting 15 to 20% break resist at most, or break chance at most. And even with a low cooldown Break Art where I'm fishing for break, it might not work as often as I would like. Now, I've done this fight before, and it's not the worst consistency in the world, although I think, ironically, in this fight, it ends up not being quite as consistent. My general strategy, though, is just kind of stand in front of him, use Mighty Strike as much as I can, and my Break Art as much as I can to charge up Gigantic Beat. Use Gigantic Beat when break is fully off cooldown, so I can recharge that and get another chance to break. And overall, that's just kind of my general approach to how I do this fight. And it ends up being okay. Matthew doesn't end up taking aggro super often because of the aggro reduction, because of Rex, and just in general, he's got a little bit better luck on that. Now, of course, I just missed Gigantic Beat there, so I don't get my Break Art back up until I auto-attack here. And after that, I end up finally dying, but fortunately my healers are set up in a way where it doesn't matter too much if characters die, because they'll get revived with a bunch of health, and I'm basically good to go instantly from here still. So, like I said, the general strategy is focus on using your arts as much as you can. Generally, you might want to like fish for a break after you get your chain attack up, which I start doing a little bit later. This enemy in particular is really annoying, because every time he blocks an attack, you only do 1 damage to it. Which is why Rex's Unblockable is really nice. I wish every character had an ability to do something like that. Because the block rate's really annoying here. But regardless here, Energy Revolt's really nice with the area of effect power charge. The Mighty Strike detonating hit combo is pretty nice for a decent amount of damage. And the Backspin Punch and Raging Force is not only good as a break, but it's also good just for the general damage that it deals as well. But yeah, at this point I'm going to start probably just fishing for the break with auto-attacking as much as I can, canceling into that as much as I can. And using a Mighty Strike to charge up Gigantic Beat, so I get even more chances to break. This is it's not really a difficult playstyle, I would say. I say a lot of it's pretty straightforward, just in general. I don't think I've gotten a single break this entire fight, which is really ironic. But yeah, I think this is probably the worst look I had on this, which is pretty funny. But once I finally do get that break, the fight's basically over at this point, because we already have the chain attack gauge. Like I said, you'll usually get more breaks than I got in this fight with the Break Brooch, so this was just kind of unfortunate luck in general. And especially against non-Super Boss unique monster enemies, you'll get way more breaks with that Break Brooch. Story enemies shouldn't have nearly as high break resist. You shouldn't have to worry about most enemies in the game just kind of not allowing you to break them. And just in general, you kind of just want to make sure you're getting the utility here as much as you can to make sure that you have more chances to do this. So I think I finally get the break pretty soon now that we're 3.5 minutes into the fight. Yes, I'm able to... The 12% actually allowed me to use break twice in a row, so I was finally able to get the break here and go into this chain attack. The general strategy for the chain attack is going to be similar to what I've shown off in previous videos. This time I'm just going to finish with Rex and Matthew. They can do an absolutely massive amount of damage as a finisher, so no matter how the rest of the chain attack goes, you'll probably be able to kill regardless, which is really cool. I typically like using a combo route that allows me to basically guarantee myself a good chain attack no matter what my orders are. This will not work as well if you are in post-game for a certain reason, but if you have this kind of setup otherwise, you should be good to go no matter what kind of orders you have access to on the character screen. Glimmer here lowers enemies' physical defense by 75 percentage points, makes Matthew and Rex both hit much harder. I end up using Matthew's order here, and I don't want to actually attack with him in the chain yet because I'm kind of setting up in a way where I'm able to take advantage of his area of effect power charge. So next round I'm going to use Matthew's attack to get an area of effect power charge. Now, basically I can't show the damage he dealt there because he got blocked on 4 of those 5 hits, so he did 1 damage 4 times because that's just how this fight works for some reason. I don't know why launch enemies can block attacks, but it just happens. So now, I've now granted my area of effect power charge to everyone. Glimmer's going to grant area of effect crit rate up and crit damage up. And Rex will finish for the 200 bonus here. Shulk, at the end of this, also is going to grant power charge to everyone, so Matthew doesn't have to do that next round. I'm not going to attack with Matthew this round because I want Matthew to attack on the very final round where we're doing the Unity combo. And I don't want him to accidentally go over 100 points. So I'm just kind of intentionally setting this up in a way where I can make sure that my chain attack goes off perfectly. So you'll be able to see the massive amount of damage that the Rex and Matthew combo deals like after this, which is really cool. Like, we only have 1 round of the chain attack left, and we're basically going to overkill him by an absolutely massive amount anyway. So he has over half of his health left. So Matthew attacks first, does over 1 million damage. Pretty nice. Gets him close to the half health. We also grant the area of effect power charge to everyone. Glimmer refreshes the crit rate up and crit damage up. Rex finishes, and then the absolute finisher after this. This is also a smash effect. We're going to do, like, basically damage kept twice here, almost. So the finisher is going to finish off the rest of his health bar, and then we're going to get, like, 20 million damage overkill after that, which is really funny. So Rex is attacked, Matthew attacks, and does a decent chunk there, millions of damage. Rex finishes, and then here comes the smash effect for, like, basically damage cap almost twice. Damage cap and near damage cap. That was 20 million just on the finisher there. Just basically after all the actual damage was done. So you can see there, if you team up Matthew and Rex, you could finish with an absolutely massive combo there, which is really cool. And that's one of the big benefits about teaming those two up. Your chain attacks can be incredibly strong in the right scenarios. I'm not sure if the order is as good as the Glimmer and Rex order overall, the Unity skill, but it is nice just to be able to get the massive chain attack damage sometimes, and just seeing the extra animations is really cool as well. So I do like that a lot. But that's probably going to cover it for this video. I don't want this to drag on too long. And, yeah, basically Matthew's a really good utility attacker. Brick art is great. Cancel damage is great. The team up with Rex is great. Matthew's really fun to play with all of the art cooldown and spamming. So I hope you guys learned something from watching this video. If you did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any questions, want to ask me anything, feel free to comment on the video. I'll try to get to those if I can. No promises, but I will try to get to all the comments that I possibly can. And with all that being done, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a wonderful and blessed day, and hopefully I'll see you back here soon for all of my future guide videos.